Hey guys, so I wanted to do a 2009 to 2019 comparison drawing. I chose this drawing from a while back, I guess 2009. I drew this as a gift for one of my followers on DeviantArt, Ramen Warrior. This is their character. And I wanted to see if I could try to draw it again, but better, and to see whether or not I improved. So far, not looking great. I do not draw anthro characters or furry characters very often, so this was kind of difficult for me. And I just scrapped the whole thing, actually. I just scrapped the whole initial sketch because it looked like a demonic Simba. And I started over with a different pose because I realized that the original pose was also not working. So now I have this kind of regular person but with a weird giraffe snout, and I'm drawing in the sword with the hands, trying to render as much of the normal human parts of the sketch as I could because the whole wolf thing was really throwing me off. And then I guess I went to had a break in the middle and then just started rendering the rest of the hand, or sketching the rest of the hand. Added the ramen bowl, added the cape, and I gave it some kind of wonky pig ears. And and then I tried to draw the face, but the face does not fit on the plane of the wolf, and I was like, nope, this is not working. So I just keep jumping away from the face to avoid doing it and fixing other things. And then I draw this kind of cute eye, and I'm like pretty happy with it, but it doesn't stay that way. Adding in the t-shirt, feeling frustrated. It looks like a llama or like a lion that's been stretched too far out, and so I'm struggling. I try to draw like a dog nose to make it look more wolf-like. Add some furry bits to the cheeks, which I think all kind of help. Like, this is all just a learning process for me, like trying to figure out what I wanted the face to look like. And then I draw this cute eye, which also doesn't really stay. And this protruding jawline. Closer, but it's still not there. I kind of draw like a dorky dog instead of a wolf. I keep changing the nose, keep changing the snout. And then I draw this eye, which doesn't make any sense. Like, the far eye on the left should not be there. You should not be able to see that. So I take it out. And I'm just like really struggling with this face. Like, I really don't know what to do, but I wanted it to be a little bit more sexy, like, because it's like a princely wolf kind of warrior guy. So I wanted it to be kind of hot, but also very serious. I'm playing around with the face again, and I get closer to where I want to be. A little more angular, I think, really helped. So the eye is more angular, the jaw is more angular, all that good stuff. I added aging lines to the eyes, and then I adjusted the positioning a little bit, and added some hair, and some thick brows. Still don't really know what to do, so I just draw the ears again, but pointier this time. And then I just decide to flip everything upside down and draw upside down. I just on the iPad, so that's probably why. I was just like using it upside down without realizing it, and then recording my upside down drawing instead. So I'm drawing the hair, refining the ears. My method of sketching is kind of like I do rough shapes and then I create the more refined sketch or outlines from those rough shapes by erasing. So it's kind of like sculpting out my lines as I sketch. I learned this from KNKL on YouTube, and he's also on other platforms, but he made a tutorial about this, which I can link below. Yeah, so I just keep going at it with the details. I'm making him hairy now so that he's actually a wolf man. I'm not good at rendering fur at all, but I tried my best for this video. Cleaning up the hand a little bit, making sure that it makes sense. At some point I realized that the hand is not in the right place, and I fix it. I guess that's not right now. Move it over because I want his sword to be nice and long. I want a nice hefty sword. I don't want a dinky sword. And then I'm starting to clean up the lens, making them thinner, fixing the shape, adding in the things, what do you call them? The things that like attach the cape to the shirt. I don't know how those would actually work in real life, but in this picture it seems to be fine. Adding details to the sword, and then cleaning up the thumb because it wasn't feeling right. I think, yeah, this is when I move it over a little bit because it was not holding the sword in a normal way. Yep. Continuing to sketch. I'm really bad with weapons, so that's why the sword looks pretty lame. But it looks more like a sword than my other old 2009 drawing of a sword, so that's all I can really ask for. Here I'm just selecting the sketch so that I can make a mask. I was painting the mask and then I realized that it was not like a full opacity mask, so I just selected it again and then filled in the whole thing again. Filled it with blue, which I wanted to be like the cool dominating color, and then I added in a lighter blue for the lighter parts of his fur. Because in the old drawing it's all kind of just the same tone of gray for his hair and his fur, but I wanted to give him more of a wolf-like appearance in the new one, and give him a little bit more contrast in his different fur colors. Yeah, so I'm just painting in white edges of the fur, kind of determining the lighting. And then now I'm filling in his hair and his ears in a darker gray. I wanted it to contrast the rest of his fur a little bit more, make it different from his, I guess, skin fur. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, like make his hair different from the rest of his body. And then I filled in his shirt, and I used a lower opacity brush, so then there's like these lighter bits, and then just use those lighter bits as kind of shading or highlights. And then I choose a color for the cape, and then I do this to it, which I hate, and I change it later. The folds of the cape really don't make any sense, so I just kind of just fill them in and then ignore them for now. Oh yeah, I added like the inside and the outside of the cape, which makes a little bit more sense. Filled in the ramen bowl, and then filled in the darker areas of his fur with some desaturated blues, and then did that also with his hair and his ears. Then adding some detail to the sword and coloring in the metal bits. I'm just picking like tones of gray from his body and his ears to like use for the sword and the metal clasp things. And then gives him some piercing blue eyes and some highlights in his nose. And then I create like a new overpaint layer, so this is so that I can paint on top of my lines, and if I don't like it I can just change it afterwards. This also serves to kind of clean up the sketch into something a little bit more refined of a line art. So that's what I'm doing with the hair right now. Instead of erasing it and redoing it, I'm just painting on top of it. Same with the cheek. And same with the hands and the ramen. And then I work for a really long time on this like Naruto thing for some reason. And then I give him some nice thick brows with some shades in there. And then I realized that like the hairline doesn't make any sense. It's like out of perspective, so I fix that a little bit. And I add more shading to his hair. define his hair. I don't really get how the ears connect to the hair for a character like this, so I just close it off and then hope that it would be fine. And then I contemplated on whether or not to make the line art color or not, and I decided to just go for it, because why not? It's like a technique that I learned how to use within the last 10 years, so I might as well try to use it. Yeah, so here I just hit protect alpha on the line art layer, and then protect alpha on the line art layer, and then I just filled it in with a kind of slightly darker color than the color that's inside of it. And then I realized that the reds for the red t-shirt outline are really dark, so I lighten them up and I make the lines a bit thinner by painting more red, adding more red bits. And then I add more contrast in the hair so that his chin pops out more, because it was kind of disappearing in his hair. And then I add like color to the little bobble pin cape things. I know that they're not even, and I could fix it, but I was too lazy, so they're just uneven. Okay, that's just what we get. Adding more fur, making him more hairy, adding highlights to the fur, cleaning it up a little bit. Oop, mistake. Yep, just continually sculpting. That's the whole painting process, is really just adding and then taking it away. Same with this cape bit. Filling things in. More fur, more whites, more highlights. Usually I just start with a mid-tone and then add a shadow and then add a highlight, but it sometimes changes depending on what I'm coloring. But that's usually how I operate. Like, highlights are usually last because they're on top. And then I'm like, oh, I'm done. Just kidding, I'm not done. So I realized the perspective of the ear is off. I shift it over and then seamlessly add it back into the drawing. And then I start chiseling away at more of the edges to clean it up. And I realized that I did not really render this sword at all. And I hate rendering weapons because I'm so bad at it, but I'm like, I can't just leave it like this. It looks like crap. So I added a little bit more detail and colored in the lines and edges of the sword. Cleaned up the tip, just the tip. And then added a little groove in the middle. And then kind of fixed the hilt a little bit. It's not great, but you know, it's better than before. Just adding some shading and highlights to the little gem bits. And then cleaning up the cape, edges of the cape. I still don't really like the cape, but I was too lazy to change it. And then adding deeper shadows into the hands. And that's it. That's the whole drawing. I feel like in terms of what I've improved on, I've definitely gotten better at poses, at anatomy-ish, and using references more effectively to convey certain positions and certain ways that the body moves and form. Like the 2019 drawing definitely has a lot more depth to it than the 2009 drawing. The old one is pretty stiff and pretty flat in terms of the coloring and in terms of the shading and just everything about it. And the fur doesn't even look like fur. He just looks like a hairy man. Like the 2009 one just looks like a hairy gray man who happens to have a wolf head. And so I think in 2019 I've definitely gotten better at creating more of a better mix between wolf and man. And also he's buff. Like, he's no longer a pinner wolf. He's like a hot wolf. which I appreciate, you know? I like me a hot wolf. And I really like how I rendered the ears this time around, because the first time in 2009, I think the ears do not look accurate to a wolf's ears. They look much more like pig's ears. And two, I didn't even shade them properly. They're kind of just like, I kind of just added hatching into the inside, and then I called it a day. And if you think about it, he only has one ear, but it's on like the side of his face, which doesn't make sense for a wolf. Their ears are at the top. So even in terms of just like looking at wolf anatomy and trying to make sure that it's accurate, I think I've done a much better job on the ears for the new version. Honestly, the 2019 version is still kind of rough. Like, I could go further in fixing the sword, rendering more detail in the ramen bowl, maybe fixing the cape, because I still don't like the positioning of the cape. But I mean, I did this whole drawing in like 2 hours, which is roughly the same time it took for me to do the one in 2009. So in terms of like keeping within the same time constraints and trying to do as best as you can, like, I wanted to compare them directly. So it's pretty good, I would say. I don't know. What do you think? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know. And thank you so much for watching this video.